What's up, everybody, and welcome to The Horror Within Me, a podcast dedicated to, you guessed it, horror movies and everything in the horror genre. My name is Eric, and I'll be your host each week as we dive in and discuss different parts of the horror world movies, media, whatever it is, you name it, we love it. So, if you are a horror movie junkie like me, this is definitely the podcast for you. So, let's go get our fix, fiends. Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of The Horror Within Me. Uh, this is an exciting episode. I'm so happy to be doing this one. I've been waiting for the perfect time to jump into it. Uh, if you know, I've posted a little bit on social media. If you follow me, you already know this week's episode is going to be 4th of July themed since it's going to be released this weekend, 4th of July weekend. And it is one of my favorite horror movies from when I was younger. I Know What You Did Last Summer. I Know What You Did Last Summer was obviously little background story. If you don't know, it's based on the book by Lois Duncan and was written and released in 1973 in October. And I think what's interesting that when I was doing some research on it, just trying to learn a little bit stuff that I hadn't looked into yet, that the book was released in October of 1973 and the movie was released in October of 1997. So what I found interesting about that is that they're both released in October. Not that, it's a horror movie media, so October doesn't make, it's not uncommon that it was released, but I found that fun. For those of you who don't know, Kevin Williamson wrote the movie. He also wrote Scream, which was a year prior. So there's a lot of things that people say, critics say about I Know What You Did Last Summer is a Scream knockoff, but I wouldn't go that far because it wasn't a completely different person who wrote the movie. The person who wrote Scream wrote I Know What You Did Last Summer, and it was reintroducing the slasher genre of the 80s and like late 70s and early in throughout the 80s. So I don't want to say it's a knockoff, but they say that about everything. They say that Freddy and Jason were knockoffs of Halloween, which maybe they were, but they all in their own right have their own storylines and they're, iconic. And so that doesn't change for I Know What You Did Last Summer and Scream. They are their own independent movies and iconic in their own rights with their own villains and characters. So the movie stars Jennifer Love Hewitt, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Ryan Phillippe, and Freddie Prinze Jr. Just also stars Johnny Galecki, sorry, and Bridget Wilson. If you don't know their names, you will probably know that Johnny Galecki is best known for his role in The Big Bang Theory or Roseanne. And Bridget Wilson, she was in a couple things like House on Haunted Hill, the remake, and I don't know if you've seen the original Mortal Kombat movie that came out in the 90s, but she played Sonya Blade. Um, just a little fun fact for you guys. So our characters are Julie James, played by Jennifer Love Hewitt, Helen Shivers, played by Sarah Michelle Gellar, Barry Cox, played by Ryan Phillippe, and Ray Bronson, played by Freddie Prinze Jr. So this movie, like I said, came out in 1997. I think I was 12 years old when it came out, and the weekend of its release, I was very sick, like fever, in bed, couldn't go out, and I was so upset because, like I said, everyone knows I'm a huge Sarah Michelle fan, especially Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and especially then when Buffy the Vampire Slayer was really just coming into its second season and really getting into the thick of things. The Buffy Angel dynamic was at its height, at its peak. So I was devastated that I couldn't go to the movies. And obviously, it's a rated R. And I watched horror movies growing up. So it wasn't the fact that it was rated R is why I didn't go. I just was sick and neither of my parents would take me because of that reason. So both of my older sisters went to the movies to see it, and I was pissed. Oh, I was so upset because I felt betrayed. Like, oh, how could they go? they get to see this movie, they're gonna know about, I only really swear to God only cared about Sarah Michelle Gellar's role in the movie. Jennifer Love Hewitt, didn't think I even know who she was, or any of them aside from Buffy. That's the only person I cared about. The only reason I wanted to see the movie. Um, so I didn't want them to give me spoilers. I didn't want to know about it, and I was like, how dare they get to go see it? They're not even fans of her. And I just remember being, so dramatic, you know. But um, I ended up did seeing. I don't remember when I saw it, but I definitely did. Obviously, within I think I saw it sometime in the theater. Honestly, I can't remember, but it's neither here nor there. Um, but I did learn, which is fun, which most people already know, is that obviously we know that Sarah Michelle Gellar and Freddie Prinze Jr. are married in real life. They have two children. They actually met on the set of I Know What You Did Last Summer, and they didn't start dating. I've read they didn't start dating on until like 2 years later, which was super interesting. But that's a fun fact. Another fun fact that I read recently when I was looking into the movie, just different things, was that apparently there was like a little something going on with not something going on, but there was Ryan Phillippe and Sarah Michelle had like rented a car and went like doing like I don't know. They say that they got it stuck on like a beach dune. So my guess is that they were out there being reckless and driving crazy on the beach, and that they were afraid they were going to get fired from the movie because they got stuck on the beach and they had to call a tow truck, and they didn't want the producers to find out, which I thought was kind of funny. That reading that, I think Ryan Phillippe a few years ago did an interview and mentioned it. I don't remember where, so don't quote everything I'm saying, but definitely he had said it, and he said I don't think they ever found out until now or something like that. And it's just so funny to think about younger Ryan and Sarah and Michelle, being reckless and having fun, just like every normal teenager. Just because they're making these hit shows and movies and everything, you think of them as not normal teenage, early 20 kind of kids, but they're just like me and everyone else in our 20s. We were reckless and doing crazy things. But yeah, I thought that was a really fun fact to talk about for a little bit. Um, but I do want to jump into more of the movie. So we know the summary. Four high school kids, the weekend of 4th of July. They're going, they're in their small, I think it's North Carolina town, and they're drunk and driving, and they hit a guy, and they decide to make this fateful decision to not ruin the rest of their futures because they're so young and have so much, potential to do things with their lives. You know, Buffy, or I'm going to call her Buffy, apologize. Helen has aspirations to be an actress in New York, and I believe Barry wants to do football or something. And I don't think Ray has much going on. I don't think he, I don't know what he wants to do with his life. And then we have sweet old Julie James. She's the one that's trying to reason, the voice of reason, and tell them not to, that, she's not down with that. And basically, she ends up going along with it because, group theory, and everyone else, the three of the others are like, yeah, let's just dump the body. So, like they live on an oceanside town. So they take the body, put him in the trunk, drive him to a pier, roll him into the into the river. Now, a little bit before that, we all know that Sarah, or Helen, she gets crowned Croaker Queen, and that's something local that they're doing. So before he goes in, he grabs the crown off her head, takes it down. So obviously, the man is not dead, right? Like, you thought he was dead, and then he rips off the girl's crown. Like he's moving to the point where he's doing functions. He's not having death flips. Like he's alive, but they decide to like fight him and push him in the water anyway. So not only did you run him over, and he's like barely alive. Now you're like, fuck it, let's push him in the water, and then he'll just drown because we don't. His legs and arms are probably back, could be broken, can't move. Let's just let him drown. That's even worse if you think about these damn kids and what they did to this man. But yeah, so anyway, fast forward, we all know a year comes by. Julie's at college and she ends up coming home for the summer, but she's clearly a different kind of person, not happy, bubbly, blah, blah, blah. And her mom's worried, and she gets a note that sets the whole thing in motion, which is a letter addressed to just Julie James. And all it says is the infamous thing that all it says is, I know what you did last summer. Oh my God. This was the moment in his movie history where the note of anonymous note that says, I know what you did last summer is the equivalent of Scream's, what's your favorite scary movie? Right? So we look into it and we're like, okay, somebody knows. So now she's hunting down the other three. Obviously, a year has passed. We find out that her and Helen are no longer besties. Her and Ray are no longer dating. Helen and Barry are no longer dating. Like, everyone's just kind of their own thing. Helen's working at her family's shop with her bitch sister, who's Bridget Wilson, whose name is Elsa. Elsa. I don't know. It just rolls off the tongue differently after Frozen, doesn't it? But yeah. So she's sad and she's trying to move on with her life, but it just didn't work out. I think she goes to her first, and from there they go to Barry, who's still a fucking prick, for lack of a better term. And he's like, ooh, I don't care, pretty much anything like that. And then they go see Ray, who ends up, we see he's working on the fishing boats with, I guess, his family or his, whatever the case may be. Julie's all about investigating. Sarah, or Helen, forgive me, this is going to be a long podcast of me calling her Sarah or whatever. Helen, the aspiring actor she wants to be, is like all of us who are movie buffs, especially horror movie buffs. We not only enjoy horror movies, we study, we try to learn from them. We believe that the rules within them apply to real life, because sometimes they may. So they start doing investigations. They look into, they found out who they hit because the body washed up, I think, and his name was David Egan, I believe, who's who they got hit. So they do research and things are going on. We know the story. So I want to fast forward to a couple iconic scenes in the movie that really stood out to me. The first one is the scene. The first death, obviously, is going to be Johnny Galecki's role as, what is his name in the movie? Oh God, Max. He gets killed while he's working in whatever freezer thing that he's doing with the fish or whatever, and that's where the fisherman gets his hook, hooks him right up in the under the chin. So Julie's driving, and you hear these noises, and she opens the trunk, and Max's body's in there filled with crabs. So this is one of the first moments that, not in the movie, but it was an iconic moment for media history, because she's getting over it at this point. And you remember the big, what are you waiting for, huh? What are you waiting for? I want to scream a little louder, but I won't because there's other people here. But I remember that. Everybody, still to this day, some people that have grown up and are my age, we're not going to, get too much into it. That's embedded in us. So sometimes randomly I'll say that and nobody understands what I'm saying, because not everyone in my life is horror movie people. But the ones that get it, I appreciate you. And if you're out there and you get it and you still do it, I love you and appreciate you as well. Yeah, so that was an iconic moment that we got from pop culture from this movie. The other thing was, I want to talk about how this fisherman really, really fucked with Helen Shivers. Do you know what I mean? Like, Julie was the the final girl, kind of, the Laurie Strode, or the Nancy Thompson of the series, or the Sydney Prescott. She was our girl. But I don't feel like, she got a letter and she got a dead body in her trunk, but she didn't get like fucked with the way like the others, like Barry got run down on the road. Uh, Ray, I don't think nothing really happened to him. So we're thinking him as a suspect, because we're doing kind of the Scream thing, with that, Slicker with the hat, fisherman can't see his face. He puts a hook in front of it so you can't see. Um, but poor Helen, they find David's sister. We know that. But when she comes home and the fisherman's in her house, and she goes to sleep, and her sister, and she's just, sad, sad Helen. She's sad about everything. But she wakes up the next morning, and this was iconic. She wakes up, and her croaker queen crown is on her head. She's supposed to be in the parade this day because it's been officially a year later now. She's waking up. It's the 4th of July. And she realizes that her hair is falling out, and she goes to the mirror, and all it says in like lipsticks is soon. And she realizes that the fisherman, was in her house, in her room while she was asleep, and cut up her hair. And so she screams because she's all about beauty and looks, and like breaks the mirror or whatever. I thought that was very interesting. Like, he was there and she was all about her looks, and she had longer blonde hair, but now I don't know who her stylist was that she got on the last minute because her hair was on point. It was like, shoulder length. It was cute. He was not a beautician. He didn't come in and cut her hair nicely. So she had to get that fixed, which thank God she was able to, right? We're not going to get too deep into how she was able to do it, but that was the first thing, he was doing to her. And then what I really want to get into is just, if you haven't noticed, we're going to talk much about Helen. There's other fans out there of this that really agree with me. I'm sure that she carried this movie. She was the girl that we really want to see through to the end. We loved her character. We loved Sarah's portrayal, but Sarah's Helen's chase scene in this movie is probably one of the most iconic chase scenes in horror movie history. I will fight that till the end. I don't know any other scene or chase scene in any other horror movie that is as iconic. Not even, Laurie Strode scratched the surface with the original Halloween chase scene, which is iconic too with the keys, and it's kind of reenacted with Helen. But I mean, this chase scene was like amazing. And if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. It starts out with her in the back of the police car and the cop getting out down the alley to help out this guy that looks like he's trying to work on his car. And she realizes that it's a fisherman that just killed Barry. And at the Croaker Queen inauguration or recrowning, he died up in the stands, but kills the cop, and she's on it. She uses them heels, girl, busts that window out, she's out, she's running. And it's just the music behind it, her running. She's running for her life. She ends up at her store. She's banging on the door, kind of like I said, in the Laurie-esque fashion of, Elsa opened the door and the fisherman coming, but she gets in there. She tells her to call the police. She's very assertive, and like, I don't understand why nobody. Okay, this woman is clearly hysterical, and nobody seems to, like, they automatically assume she's crazy, which one bothers me. Why do we just assume that she doesn't know what the hell she's talking about? Like, this is a woman, like, nobody's paying attention to. She's never been hysterical before in her life. Why all of a sudden do you think she's hysterical now? Just out of no reason? So, anyway, the fisherman ends up in there, kills the sister. What I liked is that he cuts all the lights and there's just this weird music playing. She knows. So she's walking and she's calling out for her sister. And the jump scare that got me was all the mannequins that were covered in the plastic, and one of them happens to be the fisherman, and you kind of can see him, like, you spot it. But I think she stands there and she's kind of like I would be, excuse me, I would be too. Is she kind of freezes because she's like, I know this motherfucker is in one of these as well, and she's just frozen in fear and she doesn't know which way to move. I've been there. Like, you don't know what to do, you don't know where he's coming from, and then he lunges at her, tackles her. She gets up, runs, finds her sister. It's just crazy. She ends up jumping out the window. Now this is it. Okay. This is where my issues begin with this movie. She's running away. She's fought for her life so fucking hard already, right? She's doing all the right things. She's not playing any games with this man. She's watched the movie. She knows the ropes. So she sees fireworks that are start popping up in the sky, and then she sees the end of the alley and the parade is marching down the street with the drummers, and the fireworks are going off and the music is playing, and there's salvation and freedom ahead. So she starts running with her little limp, right? And then apparently hears something that nobody else hears, because I don't know about you, but I didn't hear anything. It stops mere like feet away from being in the crowd of people, and then turns around to see what was behind her, only for us to see the fisherman all around behind her again, blocking her exit, and then attacks her and kills her. Okay. There that just does not make sense. Anybody out there, you have to agree with this. Nobody I've ever met thinks that she made the right choice. And I know that there's, horror movies are infamous for making stupid choices for these survivors, but this was just totally out of character for her. She was a detective and investigating, and she was all about, we don't do this. This is what the heroes would do. She was not the person that does what the quote unquote dumb girls would do. And that's just I don't think they're dumb, but these are things that tropes that people have said in horror movies, like, running up the stairs instead of out the door. This is not her character. So she's being pursued by the fisherman. If she heard a noise behind her, most likely it's the fisherman. She wouldn't have stopped to turn around. So the writers just decided to throw out her entire character arc and be like, you know what? We have to kill her somehow. Let's just stop right for dramatics. Let's just make it something she's going to get out, and then she'll just stop for some reason. Throw everything out the window that she's ever learned or ever thought about, and then kill her. I will forever, never, ever, ever forgive them for that. And not because, mostly because it was my girl Buffy that they killed. And it was the first time I think I've seen her in a horror movie and then they killed her. And I really wanted her to make it through to the end. Crushed my little boy heart. I was so upset. But also, you just ruined her entire character. And then we're back with Julie, who barely fights. You know what I mean? Like, when she finally gets on the fisherman boat, and we find out it's Ben Willis, who is the father of the girl that the father of the girl that died, that he ended up killing or whatever. He hit him. They hit Ben Willis, not the kid that died. The kid that died, the fisherman killed, whatever. You know the story. All Julie's doing is running around and locking things up and screaming at the top of her lungs. She never really, I don't think she fought. And when she tried to shoot the flare, she drops it or something. She had no final girl mentality. Helen was fighting that man. Laurie Strode stabbing Michael several times. He stabbed him in the eye, stabbed him with a knife, stabbed him with a fucking sewing needle. She fought back. I don't think Julie fought back ever. She just sat there and screamed, and Ray had to fight. Ray fought. So I was a little upset with that. But, the movie's still iconic. I think I'm going to try and get my husband to watch it. He has never seen it. So we're going to try and get him into that. I'm trying to catch him up on the classics. He was a fan of Scream. But let's get in. So my rating of I Know What You Did Last Summer would be an 8 out of 10. Mostly because of the reasons I just listed. 4 stars out of 5. Mostly for the reasons I just listed. They really threw out the Helen character story arc or character development, and Julie was just whiny in my point. They had her screaming all the time. I think they were trying to force Jennifer Love into a scream queen category, and I guess she can be rightfully a scream queen, but I feel like Sarah Michelle earned her title more as a Scream Queen and a horror person. She was also in Scream 2, which again they killed her in. She was in The Grudge and The Grudge 2, which again they killed her in. And she was in Buffy, which she was killed several times in that as well. So she just must love to die in horror movies, which is fine. But I don't know. I think so the movie spawned 2 sequels and a television show. So I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, which has our returning characters of Ray and Julie, and it also introduced Brandy into it, who I don't remember her name in the movie, but I loved her character. Thought she was great in it. I did enjoy I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. I thought it was a very decent sequel. But then there was a third sequel, which was called I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer, direct to video kind of thing with none of the returning characters. And I think I've never watched it because I didn't, especially at the time when it came out, I was like, oh, I cannot do this cheesy direct to video B movie with these actors that I have no idea who they are, or they didn't even bring back the OG Jennifer Love. So I never saw it. And then recently, I believe Amazon released a remake television show, I Know What You Did Last Summer, which I believe also was terrible. Didn't check that out either. I have a space in my heart for the original two, especially the original one with my girl, and I don't know if I'm ready for these other spins on it because I have issues with directors not giving the or producers, whatever, the writers not really giving us decent remakes. They take a concept and it's just like bare bones and they just put it out to get a cash grab with a name on it. And there's no substance to it. There's no depth. And I really think like Blumhouse is amazing. If Blumhouse took the rights to I Know What You Did Last Summer, or even if Kevin Williamson just brought it back and did like a Halloween kind of thing where we just let's just do the first I Know What You Did Last Summer and then skip ahead, that kind of thing, maybe I would watch it because it would. I feel like Blumhouse is very good at details. Jason Blum cares about his work and really what he's doing, in my opinion. So I would definitely go and watch that one. But other than that, I don't know if I'd have to read some reviews and see what's working, what doesn't work from other horror movie fans, which is also interesting as a horror fan, is that our community is very uh large and our opinions vary greatly. I think that's one of the things I love most about the horror genre is how passionate everyone is, but how my review right now on my take on I Know What You Did Last Summer is probably completely different than many of you at home. You may have a completely different outlook. You might be a die hard Julie James fan, Ray fan. You might have hated Sarah Michelle. You might still hate Sarah Michelle. And it's the experiences that we make when or that we get when we watch or experience these horror movies or anything really, then and our interpretations that we get from it. And but as a community we can have those discussions and debates. Really, like I'm a part of a group where I see debates all the time where they're rating different things, and I'll comment or other people's comments are so vastly different, and I think it's just really great, especially when you get the right mix in. Now, just like with everything, there's some trolls and some people out there that are just gutting for, pun intended, that argument where they'll say like very hurtful things on purpose, like your opinion is trash or you're trash and you shouldn't talk or you shouldn't do things. And you cannot pay attention to those people. They are literally looking for a reason just to have that kind of negative engagement. But when you get people that are passionate with different opinions and you start that connection and we start talking about why we feel that way, if it was a connection, like I said, this movie came out when I was 12, when I was the height of a Buffy fan, right when Buffy was out, whereas opposed to, for example, if my husband watches this now at 29, his interpretation might be a little different than when I first saw it. It's all about the experiences and what was going on in our lives when we experience it, that with everything. So I would love for to hear all of your takes on the movie. What was your favorite parts? Do you like the movie? Do you hate the movie? If you've never seen this movie for some reason as a horror fan, you've never seen I Know What You Did Last Summer, which can happen because you may be younger or older and at the time it wasn't something that was interesting to you, but you might want to go back and revisit like I've done recently with other movies I've just recently watched. And don't judge me, I can be judged a little bit, but don't be too harsh on me. I've just seen the first Alien movie ever, so I get it. So if you haven't seen the movie, go find it. I'm sure you can find it on one of the many streaming services. Go in Google or whatever search engine that you go into and look up I Know What You Did Last Summer with Freddie Prinze Jr., Sarah Michelle Gellar, Jennifer Love Hewitt, and Ryan Phillippe, and really watch it. And then I want you to come back, find me on social media. Like I said, you can find The Heart Within Me on TikTok or Facebook, and let me know what you thought of it. I want to hear your opinions. I want to know if you agree with me or if you don't agree with me, what it is that you liked it. What do you agree that Sarah Michelle's chase scene was iconic as I think it was? Um, do you think that it was worthy of do you think it's worthy of being considered a classic or not? And as always, if you like this episode, please rate it on wherever you get your podcast. It's really helpful for me. And that seems to be it. That's all the time we have. So for more horror content, make sure you check back. New episodes are weekly on Sundays. And if you have suggestions for other movies that you would like me to talk about or to discuss with me, please leave them on my Facebook page. And again, it's The Horror Within Me. And that's it, fiends. Until next time.